this seat free?" she asked. The single dad smiled, hiding his millionaire secret. The train lurched forward just as the little girl nearly slipped between the platform and the steel step. In one sharp movement, a tired-looking man carrying 2 bags and a sleeping child on his shoulder caught her by the arm and pulled her safely inside. Her mother froze in terror. The crowd gasped. And before anyone could thank him, the man quietly adjusted his worn jacket, lowered his eyes, and moved toward the last empty seat by the window. No one then knew that the man they ignored was worth millions, and carrying a pain money could never heal. If you believe kindness still exists in this world, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this remind us that second chances and good hearts are still alive. The woman stepped carefully through the crowded aisle, holding her daughter's hand tightly. Her face still carried the fear of what had almost happened moments ago. When she reached the seat beside the man, she looked at him with hesitation and softly asked if the seat was free. He smiled gently and moved his old canvas bag from the chair without saying much. She thanked him and sat down, pulling her daughter close. The child leaned against her mother and kept staring at the man who had saved her. He looked ordinary, his shoes were dusty, his beard had grown unevenly as if he had no time to care. His jacket was faded and old. In his lap sat a small boy, perhaps 5 years old, asleep with his tiny hand gripping his father's shirt. To everyone around them, he looked like another struggling single parent trying to survive another difficult day. No one could imagine the truth. His name was Adrian Cole. 3 years earlier, his face had appeared in business magazines, charity events, and financial interviews. He had built a technology company from a rented garage into a national success. He owned homes he never had time to enjoy, cars he barely drove, and bank accounts large enough to impress anyone. But none of it mattered the night his wife Alina died in a sudden accident while returning home from the hospital after giving birth to their son. That night shattered every wall he had built. Wealth could not buy one more heartbeat. Fame could not stop the silence inside his home. The mansion became a museum of grief. Every room echoed with memories. Every expensive object mocked him. So he stepped away from the company, handed control to trusted partners, and disappeared from the life everyone envied. He chose something far harder than success. He chose fatherhood. He moved into a modest apartment in another city where no one knew his name. He raised little Noah himself. He cooked badly at first, burned toast often, learned how to braid tiny shoestrings, soothe fevers, wash clothes, and stay awake through endless nights of crying. He traded boardrooms for bedtime stories and stock meetings for school admissions forms. He wore old clothes because children outgrow needs faster than adults understand. He lived simply because grief had taught him how little people truly need. The woman beside him noticed the tenderness in the way he held his sleeping son. There was exhaustion in his face, but there was also patience. She introduced herself slowly, saying her name was Myra. She apologized again for what happened at the platform and thanked him for saving her daughter. Adrian nodded and said it was nothing, though his eyes revealed a sadness that never fully left. Myra was carrying struggles of her own. Her husband had abandoned the family 2 years earlier, leaving debts, broken trust, and a child who asked too many painful questions. She worked double shifts at a bakery and was traveling to another town for a job interview that could change everything. She had almost no savings. Her daughter, Lily, was all she had. Yet even in hardship, Myra still spoke gently, still thanked strangers, still smiled when life gave her every reason not to. As the train rolled through fields painted gold by the evening sun, strangers slowly became human to each other. Noah woke up confused, then cheerful. Lily offered him half a biscuit. He accepted it with the seriousness of a king receiving treasure. Soon the children were laughing quietly together. Their laughter filled the space where sadness had lived all day. Adrian watched them and felt something unfamiliar stirring in him. Hope had not visited often. For years he had moved like a man surviving, not living, but there was warmth in this small moment. A tired mother, 2 innocent children, a simple train ride. No headlines, no fortune, no pretending, just real life. Myra noticed his hands were rough, not soft like a wealthy man's might be imagined. She assumed he worked manual jobs. She asked no intrusive questions, but Adrian saw the silent respect in her eyes. She was not measuring him by clothes or status. She saw only a father doing his best, that touched him more deeply than praise ever had. When the train stopped midway, an elderly vendor entered selling tea and bread. Adrian reached for his wallet and realized he had left it in the taxi. Before he could react, Myra quietly bought tea for all four of them using coins she counted twice before handing over. He protested softly, but she insisted. He knew those coins mattered to her. That simple act of generosity from someone who had so little struck him harder than any grand donation gala ever had. Sometimes the poorest people give the richest kindness. Rain began outside, streaking the windows like tears. The children eventually slept against each other's shoulders. Myra spoke in a low voice about fear of bills, fear of failing as a parent, fear that her daughter would inherit disappointment instead of dreams. Adrian listened carefully. Then, for the first time in years, he spoke openly about losing his wife, not the millionaire version, not the public version, just a man admitting he was once broken and still healing. Myra did not pity him, she simply listened. And sometimes being heard is more healing than advice. When the train arrived at the city station, the storm had grown fierce. Myra's interview papers got wet as people rushed and pushed around them. Adrian helped gather them from the floor. He then carried both children under one arm and held an umbrella over Myra as they crossed the flooded entrance. She thanked him again, embarrassed by needing help from someone who clearly had enough burdens of his own. Outside, she confessed she had nowhere affordable to stay until morning, and the interview was early. Every hotel nearby was too expensive. Adrian paused. He knew a place. Quietly, he called a driver. Minutes later, a luxury black car pulled up. Myra stepped back, thinking there must be some mistake. The driver opened the door and greeted Adrian by name with deep respect. Her face changed instantly. Confusion, shock, silence. The driver addressed him as Mr. Cole and mentioned the penthouse was ready. Myra stared at the man in the worn jacket, as if seeing him for the first time. Adrian looked uncomfortable, almost ashamed of being recognized. He explained softly that he owned a business nearby and had preferred to travel quietly with his son. He said the clothes were just clothes, and life had taught him not to confuse appearance with truth. Myra apologized for assuming he was poor. Adrian surprised her by saying he had hoped she would. Most people were kinder to him before they knew his name. He arranged rooms for Myra and Lily in a safe hotel owned by one of his companies. He also had dry copies made of her interview papers and asked the manager to ensure she reached the interview on time. He requested all of it quietly, with no show, no expectation, no debt attached. That night, in her small hotel room, Myra cried while Lily slept peacefully beside her. Not because a rich man had helped her, but because for the first time in years, someone had helped without trying to earn her gratitude. The next morning she went to the interview wearing borrowed confidence and clean clothes provided by the hotel staff. She was hired by afternoon, a stable salary, better hours, healthcare, hope. Months passed. Myra's life slowly changed. She rented a brighter apartment. Lily laughed more. Bills stopped arriving like threats. Adrian visited sometimes with Noah. The children became inseparable. Parks replaced train stations. Shared meals replaced lonely evenings. Grief and struggle did not vanish, but they no longer ruled every room. Adrian also changed. Myra taught him that surviving is not the same as living. She reminded him to celebrate small joys, to laugh loudly, to stop punishing himself for still being alive. Noah, who had once clung fearfully to his father, began running freely into playgrounds and back into waiting arms. 1 year later, Adrian reopened a wing of his company dedicated to single parents seeking jobs with flexible hours, childcare support, and dignity. He named it Elena House, in memory of the woman he loved and the future she never got to see. Myra became one of its first